the entire universe. From the silent explosion of a supernova billions of light years away to the quiet blooming of a flower in your garden is an act of desire. It is the expression of a force that longs to manifest, that seeks union by expanding into existence. And we, as conscious fragments of that same universe, are soaked in this force. To desire is not a flaw. It is proof that you are alive. But in the maze of human thought, we made a tragic mistake. We learned to desire against ourselves. And in that distortion, in that turning inward, desire becomes a blade. One of the most misunderstood and powerful forces in our psyche, lust. Lust promises ecstasy. But often, with a cruelty only silence can describe, it leaves behind nothing but ashes and the echo of our own loneliness. There is something inside you that burns, a fever no thermometer can register, a thirst no pure water can quench, a hunger that survives even the richest of feasts. It is a force they never taught you to name in school. But every human, without exception, has felt it erupt through the nervous system like a lightning strike. It leaves us shaking, awake, and terrifyingly alive. We gave it a short name, a whispered one, lust, loaded with centuries of religious guilt. But in naming it, we shrank it, we caged it, we reduced it to its most obvious and superficial expression, sex. But lust, in its true and terrifying form, is far more than that. It is not of the skin, it is of the soul. It is that urgent, sometimes desperate hunger to possess what the mind believes will finally make us whole, what will make us seen, what will make us feel alive. Even if that life lasts only seconds, like a flash of lightning illuminating the night before plunging it into deeper darkness. It is a primordial flame, the very force that Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism, called the will to live. A blind force, irrational, insatiable, universal. It does not ask why, it does not care for meaning. It drives us to exist, to reproduce, to perpetuate, without concern for reason or consequence. It is a current beneath all things. It does not understand morality. It does not care for vows. It does not weigh the destruction it leaves behind. It simply burns. This is the same fire that raised empires and turned them into dust. The same force that waged wars and signed peace. It is the muse behind the most devastating sonnets, the most fevered symphonies, and yes, the soundtrack of those nights the body never forgets. Moments so intense, they feel like we touch the face of the divine. But let us speak without illusion now. Let us be brutally, calmly, unapologetically honest. Here, in the silence of this moment. That same flame, when not understood, when burning without the guidance of awareness, is the same one that has destroyed families, shattered dignities built over decades, broken trusts once thought unbreakable, and left hearts like bombed-out cities at dawn. Ruins, ash, silence. Lust is that whisper in your ear when you are most vulnerable, when you feel invisible, bored, alone. It promises you the world. It promises instant pleasure. Immediate validation, a shortcut to escape deep, unspoken pain. But hidden in its promise is a clause written in small, invisible ink, one you never read in the heat of the moment. The clause says, the relief is temporary, the validation is borrowed, and the pleasure is a drug with a devastating side effect. Because when the euphoria fades, it often leaves behind a darker void than the one it came to numb, because the silence that follows thunder always sounds deeper, more final, more absolute. I lived it. This is not theory from books. This is a scar burned into my nervous system. I felt it, in the flesh, in the mind, in the soul. The kind of lesson life tattoos into you with fire so you never forget. I was in my 20s, that strange crossroads of youth where the world feels like a blank canvas, but your hands are clumsy, stained with colors you do not understand. You stand in front of infinite choices and feel like a ghost in your own life. I was present in the rituals, the smiles, the work, the conversations, but inside, I was hollow. Then she appeared, or more accurately, the idea of her appeared. The obsession did not build slowly. It struck like lightning, sudden, total. It consumed me like a virus. But here lies the center of the delusion. My obsession had nothing to do with her. I did not know her deepest fears. I did not know the story behind that faint scar on her rib. I did not know what dreams woke her in the middle of the night. What I knew was how the fantasy of her made me feel. It was a perfect chemical cocktail, a drug tailored for my wounded ego. Part of it was physical, yes, that undeniable animal pull. But that was only the surface. Beneath it all was ego, the ego of a conqueror, staring at unclaimed territory and aching to plant a flag. There was adrenaline, the thrill of the hunt, the dance of uncertainty, the seduction of almost but never quite. Each night, my mind became a private cinema, playing the same film on an endless loop. I idealized her beyond recognition. I turned her into the messianic cure for every existential fracture in my soul. I told myself, if I could just have her, touch her, possess her, win her, my broken identity would come together. I saw her body as an oasis, and I was a dying man in the desert of life. But this was not love, not even close. It was hunger. A spiritual hunger misdirected, and like all hunger misused, like drinking salt water to quench thirst, it left me more dehydrated than before. After months of effort, of tactics and self-deception, the fantasy brushed against reality for a single, feverish moment, and what I felt was emptiness. The cure did not work. The oasis was a mirage. The silence in that room was deafening. And in that silence, I saw the truth. The problem was never my thirst. The problem was the desert inside me. This is what lust does, with near demonic precision. It confuses, it deceives, it makes you a master of self-betrayal. It convinces you that relief is outside, that peace is a woman, that validation is a body, that wholeness can be won. But what you are chasing is not them. It is the illusion of what you think they will unlock in you. You want to be desired, so you can forget how invisible you feel. You want the thrill of conquest to mask your helplessness. You want the warmth of another body to escape the frost of your own loneliness. But lust, in its purest form, does not expand. It contracts, it reduces the sacred to the transactional. It is reverse alchemy, turning the gold of human potential into the lead of objectification. It strips the subject of its divinity and makes it a means to an end. The Jewish philosopher Martin Buber explained this clearly. He said there are two ways we relate to others, I, thou, and I, it. In I, thou, we meet the other as a whole being, with reverence, with presence. We recognize the divine spark within them. We treat them as sacred, as a soul. In I, it, the other becomes a tool, a thing, an instrument of gratification, not a person, but a function, a list of traits that stimulate your reward centers. Lust is the purest expression of I, it. Not love, not connection, but consumption. And here is the tragedy. The moment we treat others like objects, we inevitably begin to see ourselves the same way. As tools, as strategies, as formulas for control. We lose contact with our own sacred interior. We become products of performance, disconnected from our soul. And this virus, this pattern of objectification, does not end in the bedroom. This is not just about the body, it is a pattern, a paradigm that repeats itself across every area of your life. There is lust for power, that hunger to control others, to move them like chess pieces, so you never have to face the chaos within your own soul. There is lust for recognition, the insatiable craving for applause, for likes, for external validation, just to silence that quiet voice inside that whispers, "You are not enough, you are not lovable as you are." There is lust for beauty, an obsession with image, with youth, that blinds you from loving the full architecture. Cracks, weathering, history, and soul. There is lust for wealth, a fetishistic belief that some magic number in your bank account will finally buy you peace. The kind of peace you never learn to grow within. But all of these are just masks worn by the same ancient force. It is the hunger born not from need, but from lack, from a fracture, from the primal illusion of separation. It is the desperate attempt to fill an inner void with something external. And the universe? It has one brutal law. You cannot fill a hole with something that is not made of the same substance. You cannot fill a lack of self-love with praise from strangers. You cannot fill a void of peace with possessions. You cannot fill disconnection from yourself with possession of another's body. In Eastern traditions, this pattern has a name, tanha, an ancient Pali word often translated as craving or desire, but its true meaning is closer to thirst or fever. Tanha is that hunger that grows stronger the more you feed it. Buddha compared it to drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. You want something, you chase it, you get it, you feel temporary relief, and almost immediately, the thirst returns more aggressive than before, demanding a new object, a new promise. And here is the most chilling truth. Modern neuroscience is now confirming what ancient sages saw 2,500 years ago, with brain scans and molecular precision. When your brain enters a state of deep desire, whether it is lust, craving, or obsession, it releases dopamine, the so-called pleasure molecule. But that term is a lie. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It is the molecule of anticipation, of pursuit, of the chase. Your brain spikes dopamine not when you receive, but when you almost receive, when you are about to, when it is just out of reach. This is the drug of almost. It is not the reward that addicts you, it is the suspense. Dr. Anna Lemke, head of Stanford's addiction clinic, explains this in her book Dopamine Nation. Every time your brain surges with dopamine, it must balance itself. It swings back, to pain, to emptiness. The higher the high, the deeper the crash. And the greater the crash, the more you chase again. Not for pleasure, but to escape the ache that came after it. This is the hidden engine behind modern suffering: desire, pursuit, reward, disappointment, repeat. We are hamsters in a wheel, running, achieving, wanting again. But the cost is spiritual erosion, the slow death of joy. We forget how to marvel at reality. We forget how to grow anything patiently: a relationship, a craft, an inner garden. We lose the capacity for real connection, the kind that builds slowly, not through dopamine, but through something else: oxytocin, the molecule of trust, of human bond, of calm connection. It is not flashy, it is not addictive, but it is real, and it is sustainable. And here lies the final tragedy. Lust does not only blind you to others, it blinds you to yourself. It trains you to see people as objects, and in doing so, it trains you to see yourself as an object. You become a machine, a tactic, a mask, a performance. You forget your soul, and worse, you forget that others have one too. But here comes the turning point, the most important shift in everything we have said, the moment where power returns to your hands. Not all is lost. You are not doomed to be a puppet of your neurochemistry. You are not condemned to obey every primitive impulse like an animal chasing instinct. Because hidden within the very same flame that once consumed you, there is a door, a way out. And like every sacred secret, that door does not open outward, it opens inward. It opens the moment you dare to pause in the heat of your craving, to take one breath, to summon the one tool that separates you from beasts, your awareness, and to ask, with brutal honesty, what am I really chasing? What hunger lies beneath this hunger? Maybe, if you are honest, you do not truly long for that person. You long for what they represent. To be seen, admired, validated. Maybe it is not their body you want, but a momentary warmth to shield you from your own coldness. Maybe it is not conquest you seek, but compensation for old rejections that never healed. Lust is not defeated by repression. Try to suppress this force and you will ignite an explosion beneath the surface. It will not disappear, it will metastasize. And no, it is not healed by endless indulgence either. That only takes you in circles. Desire, satisfaction, emptiness, desire again. Lust is not something to kill, it is something to understand, to illuminate, to channel, like a child who cries, not because he is evil, but because he does not know how to express a deeper need. When you stop shaming yourself for desiring, when you stop fearing your own fire, and begin to study it, everything changes. Because once consciousness shines its light on the dark, dusty basement of your instincts, something powerful emerges. space, a space between impulse and action, and in that space lies your freedom. You are no longer a ship drifting in a storm. You become the captain. The wind still roars, but you steer. You can now look at another person not as a solution to your emptiness, but as a mirror, a being of equal light, equal shadow, equally divine. Desire does not disappear, but it evolves. It sees, it respects, it no longer consumes, it honors. And now the fire no longer burns you, it illuminates you. The same energy that once drove you toward objectification, addiction, loneliness, now becomes fuel. Fuel to build, to create, to write, to compose, to pursue a mission. It becomes energy for depth. For spiritual practice, for real connection, from fullness, not from lack. Because the spiritual path is not about becoming cold or sterile or asexual. It is about becoming fully conscious, not erasing lust, but no longer bowing to it. It is graduating from the school of survival into the realm of conscious choice. It is about never mistaking dopamine's urgency for the truth of connection. It is about no longer letting the reptile brain dictate the story of your life. So I invite you, right now, not tomorrow, not later, now, to pause, to turn inward, to look at your fire, and ask, is what I am chasing outside of me simply something I forgot how to grow within? Because often, the fire we feel is not desire. It is the absence of meaning. It is the disconnection from the infinite love that already lives at the center of your being. And when you finally understand that, not as an idea, but as a truth in your cells, you begin to choose. Every day, every interaction, every impulse, you choose the fire that warms, not the one that destroys. This journey we have taken together, it does not end here. In fact, it begins now, in the silence after this sentence, in your own introspection. The real magic happens when we share, when we reflect one another and realize we are not alone. So I ask you, have you ever felt that soul-level hunger, that post-lust emptiness? There is no judgment here, only a library of human experience. And if you made it this far, if you have walked with us through this entire journey, write this in the comments. The flame illuminates. If this reflection touched something in you, and you believe it might help someone else understand their own fire, the best way to support this work is to like this video. It helps the message reach the ones who need it most. And if you have not yet, subscribe, turn on the bell, so we can continue walking together through the depths of the self. Thank you for your time, for your energy, and for your courage to look where it hurts. Until next time, guard your fire.